Hello and good morning students and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. So today we have come up with another session of Hindu News Analysis. Now before we start the session, here is a very quick announcement that we have a national scholarship test conducted by BYJU'S on 12th March at 11 AM. Okay, so if you attend this particular test, then you will get a chance to get up to 90% scholarship on CSE preparation. The link for registration, it is available in the video description. So here is the table of contents. We'll be covering all these topics. First is Safe Harbour clause and how India is trying to amend it. Then this particular topic, it is useful for GS 1, 2 as well as GS 3. Then we have antibiotics and climate change. Antibiotics as a topic in itself is important for science and technology for GS3, and climate change separately is important for environment, right? And combined, this is important for your GS3 paper. Then we have agricultural pricing and farmer distress. This is in news a lot in these particular days, especially because of onion prices. This is important for GS3 again. Then we have PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan and how railways need to integrate itself within this plan, how it needs to amend its infrastructure, improve upon its infrastructure. This again is a part of GS3. Then we have a few topics which will be useful for your prelims exam. We have a new moth variety that was observed after more than 170 years in Tamil Nadu. Then we have the various types of intellectual property rights, the TROPEX exercise, the Malabar exercise. This is very important right now for India from your GS2 paper perspective as well as your prelims perspective. Then we have IBSA, India, Brazil and South Africa. So we'll start with our first topic with regards to Safe Harbour clause. So recently, India has come up with a new Digital India Act 2023. Now this act, an overpowering act, is going to replace the IT Act of 2000. Now since the year 2000, there have been many changes all across the world when it comes to internet. There have been emergence of new and new technologies. We have come to 5G technology, 6G technology discussions, they have already started all across the world, right? Many of our home appliances, they are now connected to the internet. So that increases the challenges with regards to how to protect the citizens, how to protect their data in the country itself, right? So that is why there was an overarching need to amend this particular act and to come up with a new framework to protect the citizens of the country. So current challenges include artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. There are many things like deep fakes, many cyber crimes, phishing, catfishing and so on. There are so many new types of crimes that have emerged because of cyber spaces, right? So this Safe Harbour clause, it talks about one thing, that the social media platforms, they are not responsible for any data or any content that is placed on these sites by any third-party user. For example, it's me. I have a Twitter account. I post certain tweet. Now this tweet, it is insightful or it creates violence or it is causing an impact on any community of the country, then Twitter won't be responsible for that tweet. I will be responsible for that tweet. So that is called Safe Harbour clause. Now because of this clause, what is happening? There is no accountability on any of these social media websites. They are not at all accountable for any kind of fake news that is spreading through these mass media places. Okay. Now the minister, he talked about Article 19, freedom of speech. He said that yes, freedom of speech is important for social media platforms. You can express your views on the social media platforms. However, it is also important that this does not affect the public order, the morality, the security of the country, and the national interest of the country. So there is a big debate between freedom of speech and security and public order. Okay, so recently, the government of India, it came up with multiple rules to impact the safe harbor clause. First was the IT rules, Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code of 2021. Now, according to these rules, all these social media websites, they had to appoint a grievance redressal officer. They had to appoint such an officer, and if any citizen has any problem with any of the posts on these websites, then they can send this complaint to these grievance redressal officers. These officers, they have to acknowledge within 24 hours that they have received this complaint, and within a span of 15 days, they have to provide a redressal for that complaint. Moreover, if there is any issue, any post that has been flagged by the government of India that needs to be removed from the website, they have to remove it within 72 hours. So the government of India, through these rules, it got the power that it can get any of the posts removed from these social media websites within 72 hours. In fact, according to many reports by many social media outlets, for example, Twitter, the Indian government is on first position when it comes to requests for removal of content from the websites. Apart from that, within these rules itself, to improve the grievance redressal mechanism on social media websites, India came up with GACs. So 3 grievance redressal centers have been established in the country, wherein any citizen can file a complaint if the grievance redressal officer of that particular social media website did not address their issue properly. So they have to file this grievance within 30 days. So for example, today I file an issue with the grievance redressal officer. They have to provide a solution within 15 days. If they did not provide the solution within 15 days, or if the solution that they have provided, it is not up to the mark according to me, then I can go to this GRC and file a complaint within 30 days of the response of this particular authority. Okay. Now the grievance redressal committees, they are composed of 1 chairperson, 2 members which are appointed by the central government, and 2 independent members. So these have been notified only in January 2023, and they came into being only from 1st March 2023. So this is a very new mechanism, so you need to take a note of this properly. So the minister also said that India has a 4-pronged approach to protect its citizens against any cyber issues. So what are these 4 prongs? One is Personal Data Protection Bill. Second is various rules that will be formulated under the Digital India Act. Then there is National Data Governance Policy and various amendments that will be made to the IPC, and also the amendments that will be eventually made to the Companies Act, so that these companies which are using the safe harbor clause, they cannot hide behind this clause and prevent any responsibility. Okay. Okay. So the next topic is with regards to antibiotic drugs administered on livestock. So according to a very interesting report that was published by an agency called Weizmann Institute of Science. So this institute, it is present in Israel, and they published a very interesting study. They said that on the land of all the mammals that are present, only 6% of them are wild. The rest of the mammals, they include livestock, humans, and dogs. Okay. So amongst these which make up the majority of the mammals of the world, livestock is the biggest group. So the livestock population in India also has the highest amount of livestock population across the world, right? So this is bringing about more and more challenges. Now livestock, to increase the productivity of the livestock, to prevent them from any diseases, there are multiple types of drugs that are administered to them. Now according to this study, this very latest study that has been conducted by the Center for Ecological Sciences under the Indian Institute of Sciences, it has found out that the use of these antibiotics, it is preventing the carbon sequestration in the soil. It is affecting badly the carbon stock of the soil. So what is happening over here? There is something called carbon use efficiency of the microbes that are present in the soil. So what happens? If 100% of carbon is given to them, out of the total carbon given to them, they use some carbon for their growth and they use the rest of it for respiration, right? So what is happening over here? The amount of carbon from the soil that is taken by these microbes, it is getting respirated out. So the amount they are using for the growth, for their own growth, the carbon from the soil that they are using for their own growth, it is reducing. So a lot of carbon from the soil, it is entering the atmosphere again, instead of getting sequestered or stored in the soil as another form of carbon. Okay, so how is this happening? So it was found that when the antimicrobials or antibiotics, for example tetracycline. Now tetracycline, it is an antibiotic which is used to prevent bacterial diseases like pneumonia or any other respiratory infections, any skin infections or eye infections amongst these animals. Okay. So when this is released in the soil through dung or through urine, so these antibiotics that are present in the soil because of dung and urine, it affects or alters the microbial communities in the soil, that is affecting their ability to capture the soil carbon and use it for their growth, and instead that carbon it is getting released in the form of carbon dioxide in the environment. So what is happening? The carbon stock of the soil, it is reducing. The ability of the microbes to sequester this carbon in the soil itself, it is reducing. A lot of carbon, it is getting released in the atmosphere. And what will happen then? There will be an increase in greenhouse gases and an eventual increase in global warming, right? Okay. So carbon use efficiency, you are very clear what it is. The amount of carbon that is used for growth compared to the amount of carbon used for respiration. So this ratio is carbon use efficiency of microbes. Now apart from that, the excessive use of antimicrobials, what is it doing? Now there is an increase in antimicrobial resistance all across the world. The diseases which were initially very easy to cure, like tuberculosis, the microbes of tuberculosis, the bacteria that causes this disease, it is becoming resistant to those drugs which were initially very effective on them. So what is happening? There are some genetic changes that are taking place in these bacteria and they are becoming resistant to these drugs. So what is happening? If I contract the resistant variety of tuberculosis, then what will happen? The first line of drugs which were earlier very effective on tuberculosis will not be effective on me. So what will happen? This will increase the cost of healthcare. I will be ill for a longer period of time and I will have to use more expensive drugs to cure myself. In fact, the WHO, it has said that antimicrobial resistance and the diseases that are related to them, they will increase the healthcare load of the world drastically. They have included that, WHO has included AMR as one of the top 10 global healthcare threats in front of humanity right now. So that makes this topic very important for us, okay? So our healthcare costs are increasing, our research costs are increasing, the deaths. Now here is a figure. So there have been 5 million deaths all across the world every year due to diseases caused by resistant microbes, okay? Now, also, there is a vicious cycle of climate change and antimicrobial resistance. So you have seen that excessive use of antimicrobials in the livestock, it is affecting the carbon stock of the soil, right? So this is also happening, that increased use of antimicrobials, it is reducing carbon stock. Now this will cause greenhouse gases and global warming. Now global warming again has an impact of antimicrobial resistance. Now as the earth, it warms and warms, what will happen? There will be an increase in the transfer of genes from one microbe to another. So whenever the temperature increases, according to scientific studies, there is always an increase in transfer of genes. So more and more microbes, they will now become resistant to the drugs. Okay, so that will increase AMR. Moreover, due to climate change, what is happening? There is very random climate all across the world. The weather is changing so rapidly, we are not able to adapt to it. We are getting sick very frequently. Moreover, there are random instances of rainfalls. So what is happening? The sewage water, it is entering into the groundwater. It is entering into surface water, which is used by people to consume, right? So what is happening? The barriers between these microbes, like sewage areas, they are getting mingled with the groundwater sources. So these barriers between humans and between these microbes, they are also diminishing, okay? So there is a vicious cycle of climate change and antimicrobial resistance. So how is India trying to rein in the overuse of these medicines? So India adopted a national action plan on antimicrobial resistance way back in the year 2017. In 2015, WHO adopted a global action plan, and a part of that global action plan was that all the member countries, they need to adopt a national action plan for the same. Okay. So India adopted this national action plan in 2017. Apart from that, the Indian Council for Medical Research, it is also conducting various researches. It is conducting various surveillances. In fact, it has a proper database of various antimicrobial resistant diseases in the country. It releases this database periodically. Okay. Moreover, the Delhi Declaration on antimicrobial resistance, it was signed in the year 2017 along with the adoption of this national action plan. So according to this Delhi Declaration, many ministries, they came together, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, many of these, they came together and they signed a declaration that all of these, they will work in tandem with each other and they will help in bringing down the antimicrobial resistance in the country. They will adopt a One Health approach. So what does this One Health approach says? It says that we cannot deal with human health, animal health and plant health in separate silos. Okay? They are not separate things, they are associated with each other. There has been an increase in zootonic microbes and zootonic pathogens coming to humans, getting transferred to humans. Very good example here is COVID-19. or monkeypox. So many of the zootonic microbes, they are coming to humans. So that is why it is important that health of humans, they are not considered separately from health of animals and plants. They need to be dealt with together. Okay. Okay. Now we come to the third topic. Farmer distress, falling prices and falling hopes. Now recently, I think 2 weeks ago, a picture became very viral on social media which said that a farmer, after selling quintals of onions and investing 40,000 rupees in growing those onions and transporting them, he received only 2 rupees for the whole stock. They received only 2 rupees. So they spent 40,000. So you can see how less is the return on investment in case of agriculture. So agricultural distress in India, especially during the bumper crop season, it is not something new. What is happening? There is a bumper crop. Okay, a lot of wheat production has taken place, or let us talk about not grains but vegetables or fruits. A lot of production of onion has taken place. So suddenly there is a lot of onion in the market, right? So what is happening? The price that the farmers are getting, it becomes low, because you must have studied the demand supply curve, right? As the supply increases, the price decreases. So that is how it works. Okay. So suddenly there is a lot of supply. So definitely the amount that the farmer will get, it will get low. Now farmers, they get a news that onion prices are very high and there is a high shortage of onion in the market. So all of them, because there is no coordinating agency amongst them, all of them all together, they sow onion in their farms. So because all of them, they are sowing onion, what will happen in the next season? There will be a bumper crop, and the amount that they will get against the sale of their crops, it will be very low, right? So over the years, there has been an increase in the input prices that the farmers have to pay. There is an increase in labor cost, and many experts say that Manrega scheme, it is responsible for this particular issue. Apart from that, there has been an increase in irrigation cost, in the cost of fertilizers. Why? Because of change in the weather, because of change in the climate. What is happening? Randomly there are rains, randomly there are no rains, there are crop failures because of that. Excessive use of fertilizer and no focus on soil health. That is increasing the amount of fertilizers that are needed for the crop to grow properly. So the input costs, they have been randomly increasing a lot in the past few years. Okay. So increase in input prices, but the price they are getting after selling their crops, it is not equivalently increased. So what is happening? The amount of losses, they are increasing rapidly. Because cost minus price, it is loss, right? So there are 2 evils that are present in the agroeconomic sector. One is inelastic supply, another is inelastic demand. So what is inelastic supply or demand? When the supply or demand does not change substantially with the change in prices. For example, ideally what should happen for any commodity? If the price of that commodity increases, the demand reduces. Or if the price of commodity increases, the supply increases. So that is the basic law, right? However, in case of inelastic demand and supply, what happens? That with increase in price, there is very small decrease in demand. Why? Because agricultural products, they are essential for us. We have to eat something every day, right? So even if the price of wheat increases rapidly, even if the price of onion increases rapidly, we cannot suddenly cut that from our food, because it is kind of a staple for us, right? For many of the people across the country. So we cannot cut it rapidly. So what happens with increase in prices? the demand does not reduce rapidly. So that is why there is an increase in prices when the supply is very low in the off seasons. So periodically all throughout the year there are instances when the onion prices they shoot beyond 50, 60, 70 rupees per kg. And that affects not just the society but also the polity of India. How? There have been multiple instances of increased inflation. In fact, in the year 1998, there was an extensive increase in prices of onions. So what happens in Delhi especially, there was excessive increase in prices of onions. So what happened? The government in the next elections, they lost the elections. They lost the power because of this particular reason. So this is about inelastic demand in food commodities, especially like onion. What about supply? Now there is bumper produce. So all the farmers, they come together to the market, and what happens? There is an extensive increase in supply. Extensive increase in supply. So what happens? The prices that they are getting, that will be lower, right? So there is inelastic supply. Why? Because what happens, even though the market is giving them only 1 rupee or 2 rupee per quintal, they have to deload their products in the market. Why? Because they do not have proper storage capacities. They cannot store the products in their storage areas, right? So the farmers, they are helpless in this case. They have to sell it off, otherwise they'll leave it in their farms and let it rot to save the transport cost. Okay. So in India, because of lack of awareness amongst the farmers regarding what to sow and lack of storage facilities, there is a inelastic supply of agricultural products. Now with onions, what happens? There is an additional issue with regards to inelastic demand and supply. So for onions, the growing areas, they are very much limited all across the country. Most of the onion in the country, it grows in the Maharashtra, Gujarat area. Okay. And the consumption centers, they are also very specific, mostly specific to the bigger cities of the country. So what is happening? The transport cost to take the products from Maharashtra and Gujarat to those areas, it is very high. So the farmers, they are not able to take the products directly by themselves to these areas. So instead what they do, they go to the mandis and they send it over here. Okay. So they go to the mandis, they sell the products over here at very nominal prices that they are getting. Then the traders, they have the capacity to transport the products. So they carry it from here to the demand centers and they get very good prices. However, the farmers are suffering. Moreover, when it comes to onions, the elasticity of demand for onions, it is very low. That is 0.1. So this means that with 10% increase in prices of the onions, there will be a reduction in demand only by 1%. Moreover, if there is 10% shortfall in the presence of onion in the market, then there will be 100% increase in prices. So onion is a very weird case in this scenario. So currently, what has the government done? The government has NAFED intervention that has been done by government. So NAFED, it has established 40 centers, 40 procurement centers across the country, especially in the onion growing zones. And from here, the farmers, they can sell their products and they can get online payments. So up until now, since 24th February, the NAFED has procured more than 4,000 quintals of onion through these schemes. Okay. So gradually, since the dip, there has been an increase in the amount of price that the farmers are getting in return for their onion crops. Now over here, it is very important that we understand Operation Greens as well. Now this operation, it was declared in the year 2018-19 in the budget of that year, and its main aim was to stabilize this price volatility, in TOP, that is tomato, onion and potatoes. So it is mainly for these three products, because these three products, they are kind of staple for most of the Indians, right? So all of us, we consume it, and any increase in the prices of these products, they are directly affecting the whole entire population of the country, right? So under this operation, there are certain long-term and certain short-term interventions. Now long-term interventions are those which will take a lot of time to realize, right? Like FPOs, establishment and strengthening of the farmer producing organizations, cooperatives, so that the farmers, the sellers, they have a more say in deciding the price at which they will sell their products. So what happened in case of Amul? Amul was a cooperative. It brought together a lot of farmers, a lot of animal husbandry people, okay, who were producing milk. So what happened? They all came together and their incomes, they increased, because they all together as a group had a more say in setting the price of their commodity compared to farmers individually, okay. The second intervention is increase logistics, availability of logistics, like door-to-door collection of the farm producers, increase availability at a lower cost of transportation, of storage facilities, right? And also the third thing, increase in value chains. So what is this? If the products, they are processed properly, then their shelf life increases, and also the price that the person will get for that will increase. Compared to 1 kg of tomato, 1 kg of tomato sauce, it is more expensive. It provides a better price. Compare a packet of Lay's to the amount of potatoes that went into production of that packet of chips, right? So that is the comparison. So it also wants to establish various value chains for food processing in the country. Under the short-term interventions, what is there? There is 50% subsidy that will be provided to the farmers by NAFED for two things. One, transportation. For example, a farmer from Maharashtra, if they know that they are getting better prices in Delhi Mandi, then whatever the cost of transportation is there from Maharashtra to Delhi, they will get 50% subsidy on that transportation cost. And secondly, storage. Now, if the farmer does not have a storage facility, they can rent that storage facility from someone else who has that. Okay, so if someone else has a big storage facility, the farmer can rent it out, and if they are taking 100 rupees for that storage facility, if the rent is 100 rupees, farmer will get 50% subsidy through the scheme on that rent. So they can store their products and they sell the products whenever the price they are getting is right. They do not have to do distressed sale of their products. In the year 2020, because of COVID pandemic, there was an expansion of this short-term intervention to all fruits and vegetables. Earlier, it was only for top. In 2020, it was expanded to all fruits and vegetables. So any farmer growing any fruit or vegetable, they can claim 50% subsidy on transportation and storage. Also, in budget 21-22, the long-term interventions, these interventions, they were also expanded to 22 perishable crops, especially with terms to value chain development or food processing capacities in 22 perishable items. Okay. So once again, in very short, long-term are those which will take a long period of time to establish, like FPO, strengthening of farmer-producer organizations, improving logistics and storage facilities, and also improving value chain facilities all across the country. And short-term interventions are those which take a very less time, which is for just a season. And under this, 50% subsidy will be provided to the farmers on transportation cost from farm to that particular mandi where they are selling the product. And also storage. If they want to store, if they want to rent out any storage facility, then 50% of the cost will be reimbursed to them. Okay. So this is about this. Okay. Now, the ideal track to run India's logistic system. So, this article has been published in the Hindu and it talks about how the railway sector, it seems to be lagging behind the road sector, the road transportation sector in transportation of freight. Okay, so this is what this particular article is talking about. Now India, it has a very high logistic cost. What is logistic cost? The cost that is incurred in transporting or taking the product from the production facility to consumer. Okay, so mainly it includes the transportation and the handling costs, right? So India has a very high logistic cost compared to other markets or other economies like especially China. In China it is very low. For India, the logistic cost, it is about 12% of the GDP according to Nitin Gadkari, who is the Minister of Transport. Okay, so he says that we are trying to bring it down to 9% by the end of 2024. So our logistic cost, it is very high, and because of this very high cost, our products that are reaching the other markets or that are there for export, they are not very competitive. If I get a product, if I compare a product that is coming from India and a product that is coming from China, the Chinese products, they are very cheap. Not considering other factors like forced labor and others, the logistic cost of China, it is very low. For India, it is high, and because of that, the products of India, they are selling at a higher prices and they are not as competitive as compared to the other economies. Now, PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, it was introduced to reduce this logistic cost of the country. Now, what all is included in this particular scheme? There is integrated planning and implementation of infrastructural projects. So, right now, infrastructural projects of India, they are very fragmented. The Ministry of Roads is dealing with roads. The Ministry of Railways dealing with railways. Ports are dealt by another ministry. So, it is a very fragmented approach towards infrastructure that we have taken right now. So, what this particular scheme tries to bring? Integrated planning, integrating 16 different ministries that are responsible for logistics in the country, bringing them on a single platform so that a more planned approach can be adopted in order to reduce the logistic cost of the country. So under this, we are also establishing 11 industrial corridors and 2 new defense corridors in order to reduce the prices. The Gati Shakti digital platform, it brings together these ministries on a single digital platform so that there can be proper sharing of information amongst these ministries, right? So what is the current modal status? Right now, 65% of the freight, it is being transported through roads. So what is the problem with regards to that? The problem is there is increase in congestion, there is increase in pollution, and the time taken to take products from one place to another, it is also high. Now, according to various economic theories, for very short distances, roads. So this is the amount of distance. So for shortest distance, roads are the best means of transport. For slightly bigger distances, the railways like pan-country distances, the railways are the best means to transport. And for higher distances beyond that, international travel, ocean routes, they are the best. Or even inside the country, inland rivers. Okay. So railways right now, it is not living up to its capacity. 65% of the freight, it is being carried by roadways itself. So what is railways doing? Mainly the bulk products like coal, like iron ore, like copper, mainly mineral type of products or grains. They are being transported through the railways, and other freight products. Like, for example, if you order something from a business, like from Amazon, it is mostly being transported either through airways or through roadways. It is not being transported because of through the railways, right? So what is happening? Railways is lagging behind. Other countries like China, like USA, they are investing a lot in improving the end-to-end connectivity of their railways. That is, the amount of hands that the product is going through, it reduces. At the terminal, at the place where the producer is, there is proper rail connectivity, so they don't have to use any other mode of transportation, and they can give their product to the railways, and railways can send it to another end place, that is where the customer lies. So India is right now lagging in this particular regard, okay? And because of that, the railways, it is lagging behind the roadways. Now if we are able to transform that, if we are able to reduce the concentration on the roadways and increase it in the railways, then definitely we will be addressing these issues. In fact, right now many cities, they do not allow entry of heavy vehicles through the roads inside the city limits for certain duration. So that further increases the amount of time taken to carry products from one place to another. Right? Now railways do not have any such issues. Railways, they have their proper tracks, they can go through the tracks and they can deliver the products. Okay? So if we are able to implement this scheme properly, if railways is able to improve its infrastructure, increase its digital presence for booking of cargo, then definitely this will be very beneficial for India in regards to reducing the logistic cost. Now here are two practice questions. Let us discuss them. Excessive use of antimicrobials is not only causing antimicrobial resistance, but is also contributing to climate change. Elaborate. So this study that was done by IISc, it becomes very important for you in order to answer this particular question. So as there is increase in antimicrobials in the livestock population compared to the wild animals, then what is happening? The amount of carbon stock in the soil is reducing. The carbon use efficiency of the microbes of the soil, it is reducing, right? So because of which there will be an contribution to climate change because of antimicrobial resistance. In the initial part of this answer, it is also suggested that you write a little bit about antimicrobial resistance, how it is one of the top 10 global health threats for the world according to World Health Organization. Then the second question, what do you understand by demand and supply elasticity? How does it affect Indian agricultural sector? Now this has been discussed very elaborately in this session. You can talk about demand and supply elasticity, how demand or supply, it changes. The quantity of demand and quantity of supply, it changes with prices. Okay? And how does it affect Indian agricultural sector? So for this, it is essential that you talk both about inelastic demand and inelastic supply, and in the end part you also include certain steps that have been taken by the government of India to address this issue. Okay? Okay, now we start with Prelims Bytes. Now these are certain topics that are very essential for you, that will be very useful for you for your prelims. First is Mimeusemia ceylonica. So this is a variety of moth that has been observed in India after 127 years. So this moth, it was last spotted in 127 years ago in Sri Lanka. Now Sri Lanka's previous name was what? Ceylon. And that is why this moth was named after that particular country. Its name at that point of time, that is in year 1893 when it was first spotted. Now right now the current spotting, it was done in Tamil Nadu. So in Tamil Nadu, where there is the buffer zone of Kalakkad Mundanthurai Tiger Reserve. Now this tiger reserve, it is a part of Agastya Mala Biosphere Reserve. Now this Biosphere Reserve, it came into being in the year 2001. Now this is a part of what? Southern Hills, which is also considered many times a part of Western Ghats. Now Western Ghats, they are a biodiversity hotspot of the world, right? Which means that they have a lot of endemic varieties of plants and animals within Western Ghats. However, many of these plants and varieties are under threat of extinction. So recognition of more and more insect varieties in this place, and especially insects like these which were considered to have gone extinct and now caught again on camera, it is very important in order to determine the health of that particular ecosystem. Now insects, they are very important for determining the health of an ecosystem. A healthy ecosystem has a lot of insects, especially in case of forest ecosystems or evergreen ecosystems that exist in this particular place. So please remember this name. Remember this Biosphere Reserve, this Tiger Reserve where it was found. Okay. Okay. Now we come to IPRs, Intellectual Property Rights. Okay. Now recently the Kerala High Court, it has talked about the copyright issue that is ongoing with one of the songs of the movie Kantara. Okay. So that is why it becomes important that you know, because this news, it has been recurrently coming in the newspapers. That is why it becomes essential for you to understand what IPRs are and what are the various types of IPRs. So intellectual property rights, they are certain rights that are provided to any person who has created anything new or anything out of their intellect. It is intellectual property rights. They use their mind to create something, and that is why they have the right to use that particular created thing in whatever way they want. And if someone else uses that thing, they need to pay royalties to that particular person in exchange for use of that particular thing. Okay. So there are 6 types of IPRs that have been declared by World Intellectual Property Organization. First is copyrights. Now copyrights, they are provided on any kind of artistic work like songs, which is the issue over here, like any art, like any book. So these are the artistic works, songs, books, poems and so on. Then we have patents. Patents are IPRs that are provided on novel inventions. These inventions are those which did not exist previously. So these are the patents. They are provided on things which did not exist previously, which are now existing and made by that particular person. That person, they can provide this patent or use of that product to someone else in exchange for royalties. Then we have trademarks. Now trademarks are distinguishing marks and signs of any company or any entity. For example, if you see an M written like that in red color, you will realize that this product is of McDonald's, right? So there are certain marks that help us in recognizing particular entity. Now any other company, they cannot use similar marks, otherwise the customer might get confused that this particular product is also from that company. Okay, there are many in Indian markets. You must have seen Adibas or Abibas. Okay, so these are bad copies of Adidas. So Adidas can any day sue these companies which are producing Adidas or Abibas or any products related to that, because they are infringing the trademark rights of Adidas. Then we have industrial designs. Industrial designs are 3D, three-dimensional or two-dimensional design aspects of any particular object. Three-dimensional like structure of the surface of that particular object. 2D like patterns that are present on that particular object. Most importantly, industrial designs are provided, these IPRs are provided to new machinery or any chips that are used in computers. The way in which there are patterns inscribed on that particular chip, these are IPRs of that particular company who have produced it. Then we have geographical indicators which help in determining the origin of that particular product. Recently, Mithila Makhana was given a GI tag in India. Now Mithila Makhana is from Bihar. Now if I am a person from Mithila and I am involved in production of makhanas, if I can determine that if I have a GI tag, then the people will know that this particular makhana came from Mithila. Now from Mithila, makhanas, they are very famous. They have certain special qualities, certain special flavors, and a consumer, they might want to buy that. Now any person sitting in say Bangalore, they cannot say that they have produced Mithila Makhana. That will be an infringement of the IPR of Mithila Makhana producers that are present in Mithila. Then we have certain trade secrets, which are certain secrets of any company, of any entity, that they have the right to sell it to someone else or allow someone else to use. Currently, the best kept trade secret in the world is, most of you must know about it, it is the recipe of Coca-Cola. Now we come to the next topic, that is TROPEX. Now TROPEX is the short form or acronym for Theatre Level Operational Readiness Exercise. Now this is a biennial exercise that is conducted by the Indian Navy. Now it is being held since the year 2005 and it got over right now in March. Now this particular session of this exercise, it started last year and it ended in March 2023. Now under this, the exercise, it basically tests the readiness of the various fleet of Indian Navy. The submarines, the frigates, the airplane carriers. So it is basically testing the readiness of all the fleet of Indian Navy. Apart from that, it is also testing the interoperability of Indian Navy and its fleet with other services like Indian Navy, like Indian Army, and also the Coast Guard. So they are also involved in the TROPEX exercise. Then we come to IPSA. Now IPSA is an acronym for India, Brazil, and South Africa. Now according to a report by Diplo Foundation, these three countries, these three developing countries which are leaders of their respective continents, they can bring about a landmark shift in the way data protection and data privacy is seen, in the way digital governance is done across the world. So IPSA, it came into being after the Brasilia Declaration in the year 2003. Okay, so it came into being in 2003. Now UPSC is known to ask such questions where they'll give you the name of a particular organization or a grouping, and they'll ask you various statements. When was it formed? Like first statement, it was formed in the year 2005 through Brasilia Declaration, and so on. Now, why is this grouping important? Why did these three countries decide to come and group together? Because they have very common developmental needs. All three, they are developing nations. They are leaders of their particular continents. Amongst their particular continents, they are the countries which have some of the highest populations in their continents, right? They have issues like hunger, like poverty, and so on. So their developmental needs are very common, and also at a global level their needs are very common. That is, they all want the United Nations Security Council to be reformed. All three of these nations, because they are the leaders of their continents, they want a representation in the United Nations Security Council. So that is one other reason why they all decided to come together. Now there are various initiatives that are taken by IPSA. One is the IPSA Fund. Now this IPSA Fund, it came into being in the year 2005. Okay, and under this fund, all the member countries, they have to contribute $1 million every year annually to this fund, and the main purpose of this fund is to alleviate poverty and hunger. United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, it is the agency that is responsible for managing this fund. Moreover, there is something called IPSA-MAR, that is the joint naval exercise of the three countries' navies. The last edition of this, it took place in the year 2022 in South Africa. Next we come to another important exercise, that is Malabar Exercise. Now initially this exercise was started between India and USA back in the year 1992. Now, depending upon the current situation, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, where there has been an increase in hegemony of China, more and more countries, they are coming together to prevent that hegemony. So, we have something called a Quad group that has been established for the same purpose. Now, the countries of the Quad, all of them, they are now members of this Malabar Exercise. Japan, so India, USA, Japan and Australia, they are members of this Quad grouping. In 2015, Japan, it joined the Malabar Exercise as well, and in 2020 even Australia joined the Malabar Exercise. Okay, so you need to know the years when they join and who all are a part of Malabar Exercise now. Many of you might get confused that it is just India and USA, because that is the traditional narrative. We know that Malabar Exercise is between these two countries, but now it has included Japan and Australia as well. So why is this particular Malabar Exercise very important? It is because Australia will host this exercise for the first time ever. So that is why this particular session of Malabar Exercise will be very important globally. So that is all about today's Hindu News Analysis session. I hope you were able to understand all the concepts we discussed here. So do not forget to like the video, share it and subscribe to our channel for more such content. Also, do not forget to head to our Telegram channel, the link for which is available in the video description, where a small quiz will be available to you just after this session on the various content that was covered over here. So thank you very much and have a very good day ahead.